When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, while Mary sat in the house. Martha said to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And even now I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you." Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day." And Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And whoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this?" She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying quietly, "The teacher is here and is calling for you." And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet come to the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her, supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Then Mary, when she came where Jesus was and saw him, fell at his feet, and saying to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled, and said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus wept. So the Jews said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying?" Then Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and the stone lay upon it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Did I not tell you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you have heard me always, but I have said this on account of the people standing by, that they may believe that you did send me." And when he had said this, he cried with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with bandages, and his face wrapped with a cloth. Jesus said to them, "Unbind him and let him go." Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did, believed in him.
Glory to you, O Lord. Glory to you.
In the name of the one true God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Please be seated, everyone. This is one of my favorite seasons. This is one of my favorite days of the year. Emotions are right on the surface with a feast like this. And I want to explain what is so powerful about this Saturday of Lazarus, if I can. So Jesus, our God incarnate, is by no means above having friends, having people whom he particularly loves. Of course, as God, he loves all of us in an unfathomable way. It's a man, he shares in that divine love, but he has friends as well. He has people that he's particularly close to. He has his friends, Lazarus, and his sisters, Mary and Martha. And when Lazarus takes ill, he does what friends do not do, which is that he doesn't rush to see him. Jesus does not go to be with him, to be with his sisters who are so worried. He waits. He waits until Lazarus is deathly ill. And he waits. And he waits until Lazarus has died. And even in his divine foreknowledge, he knows. He doesn't have to be told. He is the one, in fact, who tells his disciples, our friend Lazarus has died. And he still doesn't go. He waits even longer. He waits so that Lazarus will be dead in the tomb a total of 4 days. I'm wondering if anyone here present knows of the significance within the Jewish law and in the Jewish customs of the 3 days immediately following someone's death. Can anyone speak to the significance? I thought you, of all people, Maria Frederica, may be able to answer that. It is my understanding, I don't presume to be a scholar, but it's my understanding that it was the belief among the Jewish people at the time that after someone dies, the soul does depart from the body, it tarries, it lingers in some mystical sense for up to 3 days. Up to 3 days there is this possibility for life to come back, for the soul to return back to the body, right? Before it really goes off into the nether world, never to return. Up to 3 days that can take place. And Jesus waits 4 days. He waits 4 days so that he can go to that place where there is absolutely no more hope, where there is no reason to expect, to anticipate any good happening. He waits for that utter despair and sorrow and grief to set in. And then he goes into the middle of that. He needs to stand there with Martha when she says to him, "If you had been here, my brother would not have died." In fact, she needs it. We all need it. He allows the greatest darkness to fall over this family whom he has loved so much. So that he can say those words, "I am the resurrection and the life. In all of this darkness, I am the light. In all of this death, I am the resurrection." He does this, of course, to anticipate what we're going to celebrate in a week. Not the resurrection of one man, but the resurrection of all mankind. He does this to let us know, if I have the power to do this here and now, before your very eyes, just you wait and see. So he lets the greatest darkness and sorrow and despair set in so that he can show to them, to all of those in Bethany that came out to see, all the friends of the family, and of course all of us who read this gospel and hear it every Lazarus Saturday, every year, throughout all time, to be reminded that Christ does not have the power over some of the evil, over some of the darkness. He does not give joy in some of the grief. His power does not have a limit, a place beyond that we are still on our own. But no, he has the power over it all. There is nowhere that the darkness can go that his light has not, is not, and will not go. Everything is in his control. Everything is in his power. I probably don't need to spell out the significance of this in our present time. Any worry, any fear that we have is far within his control, far within his power to preserve us and to protect us and to give us everything that we need. He can wait 4 days. He can wait 1,000,000 years. It's nothing to him because he is our God. He holds all the world in his hand, and he controls it all. Now, here's the last thing. Here's the last thing. This always, it's very meaningful to me, as I'm sure you can tell. It really stirs up within me. And yet I have to say, if I turn my attention to Lazarus, and if I try to imagine, if you bear with me, it's not always good for us to try to imagine these things, but if I try to imagine what it was like for him to be the one that God chose to be used in this way. If I try to imagine myself being the one who is sick and Jesus doesn't come, and then I'm deathly ill and he doesn't come, and then I'm dead and he doesn't come, and I'm in Hades for 4 days before he finally shows up to speak to my sisters. That is a heavy cross to bear. One that certainly he didn't ask for, that he wasn't anticipating. And yet it was through all of that that Lazarus endured. From sickness to death to hell itself, my friends. That Christ showed his greatest miracle, short of his own resurrection. And so again, in this present time, in all the ways in which we may be suffering, or the people we know and love be suffering, have fallen ill, gravely ill, the power remains in his hand, and if we are willing to accept it, it truly is to his glory. That is not a platitude. That is not smoothing over. That is not an ignoring of the evil of this world. In fact, it is looking the evil square in the eye and saying, God is going to transform you into good. So rather than me fear, you, the evil, should fear, because you're going to be transfigured. We may still have suffering and sickness and death in this world. Christ has shown today that even death itself, he has control over. Everything is in his power, and he will bring it back. Not just one man, but all of us, and every single person we know and love. He is the resurrection, and he is the life. Christ is in our midst.